An innocent couple was about to be hanged for the crime of lawmen, when out of nowhere a lone cowboy rode into town. The noose creaked softly in the wind, swaying like a pendulum of judgment above the dirt-packed earth of sundown hollow dust devils danced in the emptiness, kicked up by the dry, restless wind that swept through the near-deserted town square. Only a few dozen settlers had gathered, their faces shadowed by wide-brimmed hats and hard eyes. Most looked on with indifference. Few spitting tobacco, and contempt watched with eager anticipation. It was nearly high noon. Lina Beaumont stood, tall despite the bruises on her arms and the way her faded dress clung to her body, stiff with dried sweat and blood. Her gaze was fixed on the horizon, as though she might glimpse salvation emerging from the shimmering heat. Her chest rose and fell with the slow rhythm of someone who had already made peace with death beside her. Micah Colton shifted on the creaking wooden platform, his face browned by sun and streaked with grime, was all tension, his fists clenched, his jaw locked tight, though the rope had already been cinched around his neck. His boots scraped against the floorboards. Unlike Lena, he couldn't keep his eyes still. They darted across the faces below, searching not for mercy, that was long gone, but perhaps a flicker of recognition, a hint of resistance in the eyes of someone who might still believe this was wrong. The sheriff stepped forward with deliberate calm, his spurs clicking on the platform. Sheriff Barrow was a big man, wide across the chest, with a face like cracked stone, the kind of man who never blinked. He chewed slowly on a bit of tobacco and spat near Micah's boots. "You've had your say," he said, low and measured. "You made your choices. You defied the ordinances of this town, took what wasn't yours to take a man and a woman from opposite blood and upbringings, carrying on like that. It's unnatural, immoral." Micah's eyes burned with fury. "There's nothing immoral about love," Barrow snorted. "Love's a word used by people who ain't ready to take responsibility." A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Some nodded. Others looked away. A few children stared wide-eyed at Lena, confused, sensing only that something terrible was about to happen. The hangman, a silent, gaunt man in a wide coat, adjusted the lever and wiped his brow. Sweat poured from his temples. "Even executioners feel guilt sometimes." Lana turned to Micah. Her voice was hoarse, but steady. "If this is the last thing we do, I'm glad we did it together." Micah managed a broken smile. "You made me believe there was still something good left in this world." And then the wind rose not. A breeze this time, a hull-dry, sudden, sharp. It whipped through the square, sending hats flying, skirts flapping, banners tearing dust curled into the sky. A golden shroud covering the town in a veil of choking grit. Horses reared, the townspeople cried out. Shielding their eyes, Lena blinked against the sand. She looked up and froze through the haze. A silhouette took form, a rider slow, steady. He emerged from the storm like a ghost from the old world, tall in the saddle, cloak flapping behind him. The horse was a dark chestnut, hooves thudding like war drums as it moved through the chaos. Rider didn't flinch at the dust or the fear. He seemed part of the storm, drawn out by its fury. "Who the hell is that?" Someone muttered. The sheriff narrowed his eyes. But the stranger didn't speak. He dismounted in a single smooth motion, boots landing softly despite his height. His hat was pulled low, casting a shadow over his eyes, but his posture radiated calm authority. He walked toward the platform, ignoring the sheriff's drawn revolver. "Hold it right there, mister," Barrow growled. Leveling his gun, the stranger stopped. His voice came quiet, like gravel wrapped in silk. "You kill them now? You damn this town for what it is. You don't give the law orders." "No," said the stranger, "but I carry justice, and it don't answer to cowards hiding behind laws they twist to their liking." Barrow stepped down from the gallows, circling. "You got a name?" The wind quieted just for a breath. "Caleb," he said. "Red Hawk." That name struck something in the air, Older folks blinked, whispers stirred. He wasn't a local, but the legends moved faster than wagons. A tracker, a scout, a half-blood man, who fought for both sides, and neither side to have the devil's luck, and the patience of stone, side to speak to wolves barrow stiffened, but didn't lower his weapon. This ain't your business. Caleb took one slow step forward. Two people, loving across color lines, getting hung for nothing but fear? That's everyone's business. A murmur rippled again, deeper this time. You think you can change what's been decided? Arrow snapped. I ain't here to ask permission. The sheriff's revolver jerked up, finger tightening, but in the blink between breath and bullet, Caleb moved. He didn't draw a gun, just sidestepped, grabbed a handful of gravel, threw it. Barrow flinched instinctively as the dirt hit his eyes. The revolver fired wide. Chaos erupted. Caleb launched up the stairs, slamming into the hangman and sending him tumbling. He yanked Lena's rope loose with a tug that tore skin. Her knees buckled, but she caught herself. Micah, coughing, kicked off the noose with his boot heel. He staggered. The world-spinning gunshots, cracked screams rose. Caleb grabbed both their arms and dove from the gallows. Landing hard in the dirt, he shoved them behind a feed wagon just as bullets tore through the air above. Go, he barked. South Path riverbed's dry, but it's fast move. They didn't argue. Barrow shouted orders. Get after him. Bring him back. Dead if you have to. Micah grabbed Lena's hand, and they ran behind them. Caleb spun and fired 2 shots, not to kill, but to slow pursuit. He hit a wagon wheel, collapsing it in front of 2 of the sheriff's men. He moved like someone who'd studied every path through death and lived to map it. The chase burst from the town square, across dry ground scattered with tumbleweeds and broken fences. Lena's breath came ragged. Her bare feet bled, but she didn't stop. Micah kept glancing back, every time expecting to see Caleb gone, vanished like a dream, but he was always just behind them. They scrambled down the embankment to a bone-dry riverbed. Slipping on the shale, the wind carried the echoes of horses behind them. Time was scarce a mile out. They ducked under a stone outcrop. Hidden from the open sky, Micah slumped against the rock, coughing, clutching his side. Lena knelt beside him. You're shot. It grazed me, he grunted. Could be worse. Caleb stood watch, eyes fixed on the horizon. His rifle stayed low, finger poised, but not tense. You didn't have to do that, Lena whispered. Looking up at him, Caleb didn't look away. Didn't have a choice. Why? Micah croaked. Why would you risk your life for strangers? Caleb's eyes finally met Micah's. They were sharp and full of something ancient pain. Maybe fire loss, because somebody once did the same for me, and I didn't say thank you then. Either. The silence between them was heavy. Micah leaned back. They won't stop. No, Caleb agreed. They won't. They'll bring dogs, a posse. They'll ride hard, but I ride harder. Lena frowned. What's your plan? Caleb knelt and traced a quick line in the dirt, route twisting through canyons and cliffs. We head north at dusk. Mountains'll buy us time. I've got a place hidden. You rest until then. He stood and walked a few paces away, crouching near a boulder, watching, listening, every movement precise. Practiced. Lena looked at Micah, then at the jagged sky above. Thunder rolled in the distance again. Deeper now. A storm was coming, not just the lawmen and their guns, but nature itself. Rising in protest, she reached for Micah's hand and gripped it tight. They didn't speak. There wasn't much to say as the wind picked up and the scent of rain hung heavy in the air. Caleb remained a statue facing the town they'd left behind, watching for the dust trails of pursuers yet to come. He didn't smile. He didn't relax. He simply waited, and the world waited with him. The sun leaned low on the horizon, casting long, crimson fingers across the land, as if trying to hold on a little longer before surrendering to night. The desert glowed with a cruel kind of beauty. Hot gold in the sky and blood-colored stone below, somewhere in the silence between the wind and the dusk. 3 figures trudged westward. Their shadows stretched impossibly far behind them. Caleb walked ahead, rifle strapped across his back, his silhouette lean and sure. Each step was purposeful, measured not just in distance, but in calculation. Behind him, Micah moved slower, still favoring his injured side, but refusing to show pain. Lena supported him when he stumbled, her arm around his waist, her strength quiet and constant. They hadn't spoken much since the canyon fight. Words felt fragile now, like glass rattling in a wagon on broken trails. Air between them was full of things unsaid: fear, gratitude, uncertainty, but none of them dared let it shatter. "We're close," Caleb finally said. His voice was low, barely carried by the breeze. "Another hour. Maybe less. There's a bluff past the next ridge. Good visibility, defensible. If they come again, we'll see 'em first." Micah looked up. His face was streaked with dirt and dried sweat. "And what then?" "Then we hold. No running this time?" "No running," Caleb confirmed. Lena stepped forward. "You really think they'll try again? After that?" "They're desperate," Caleb said. "A man like Barrow doesn't take humiliation well, and he'll want blood more than justice." Micah sighed. "And we're the prize." "No," Caleb said. "You're the reason he's afraid. People like him survive by convincing others they're in control. But you too, you remind them that love doesn't obey." They pressed on, climbing the narrow path etched into the face of the ridge. The wind picked up as they neared the top, carrying the scent of sagebrush and something distant wood smoke. Caleb's eyes narrowed. He crouched and motioned for them to halt. He sniffed the air again, then pointed toward the southeast. Campfire maybe 2 miles out. Micah tensed. "Barrow?" "Could be," Caleb said. "Could be worse." They reached the bluff just as the sun kissed the edge of the world. From that height, they could see the terrain unfold: dry gulches, scattered boulders, and the distant thread of a smoke trail curling into the orange sky. Caleb set his rifle down and began stacking stones into waist-high cover. Micah followed, mimicking his movements. Lena gathered dry branches, building a small signal fire of their own, though they wouldn't light it unless things turned desperate. Survival wasn't just about strength. It was about preparation. As the sky darkened, the first stars appeared, distant and cold. Lena sat beside Micah, threading her fingers through his. He rested his head against hers, eyes closed, mouth turned into a faint, tired smile. "I never thought it'd end like this," he murmured. "It hasn't ended," she said. "Feels like the last page of a book. Then we write another chapter." Caleb sat a few paces away, carving something into a piece of bark with his knife. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes remained alert, always watching. He didn't look like a man with hope, but he looked like a man with purpose. And sometimes that's stronger. "You ever think about settling?" Lena asked him softly. Caleb didn't look up. "Sometimes, but then I remember the world ain't ready." Micah tilted his head. "For what?" "For someone like me to stop moving." A silence followed, filled with the gentle rustle of wind in dry leaves. Then, faintly, came the sound of hoofbeats. Not loud, not fast, but steady. Caleb stood. "They're coming." Lena reached for Micah's hand and squeezed it tight. Caleb crouched beside the stacked stone and shouldered his rifle. The riders came into view, not long after, 4 of them. Barrow at the front, his hat tilted low, his coat billowing like a preacher's cloak in a storm. Behind him rode 2 deputies and a stranger, one Micah didn't recognize. Caleb whispered, "They're testing us, seeing if we'll fire first." Micah asked, "Should we?" "No," Caleb said. "They're looking for an excuse. Let them talk." The riders stopped 10 yards from the bluff. Barrow raised a hand. "Evening," he called. Caleb didn't move. "Not much of one." Barrow smirked. "Don't gotta end ugly." "Hand them over," and I'll make sure the law don't trouble you again." Micah stepped forward, voice hoarse but loud. "We're done being hunted." Barrow's eyes hardened. "You think you're free? You're fugitives from Texas to the Dakotas. Your names'll ride ahead of you like plague. Then we'll ride faster." "Lena," said. Barrow's smile faded. "You've forced my hand. Girl, I tried to show mercy. Your kind calls mercy what others call cruelty." "Caleb," said Barrow, pulled his rifle from the saddle holster. "Last chance." Caleb stepped forward, lowering his own weapon to his side, not out of surrender, but as a statement. "You've had your last chance," he said. Barrow didn't wait. The first shot cracked like a thunderclap, splintering the rock where Caleb had stood a second before Lena ducked. Micah returned fire, striking Barrow's horse. The beast reared, throwing the sheriff to the ground. Gunfire echoed. Chaos erupted. Dust exploded in the air, masking movement. Caleb dropped one of the deputies with a clean shot to the shoulder. The stranger lunged from his saddle. Charging uphill, Caleb met him halfway, their bodies colliding in a burst of limbs and momentum. The fight was vicious. Fast, no words, just grunts and fists, and the sound of boots scraping stone. Lina dragged Micah to cover as bullets snapped around. Then Barrow rose to his feet, bloody but furious. He raised his pistol toward Micah. Caleb saw the motion mid-fight. He twisted, throwing his opponent off balance, and reached for his revolver. A shot rang out. Barrow stumbled. He looked down in confusion, then back toward Lena. She held her smoking revolver with both hands. Shaking, Barrow's knees buckled. He collapsed without a word. Gunfight ended as quickly as it had begun. The last deputy dropped his weapon and raised his hands, breath coming fast and uneven. "I didn't sign up for this," he said. "I'm done." Caleb stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Then go, and don't follow." The man bolted, his boots pounding away into the darkness. Micah sat back, holding his ribs, breathing heavy. Lena dropped the gun and fell to her knees beside him. "You're all right?" "Not sure," he said, laughing faintly. "Still here." Caleb knelt beside Barrow's lifeless body. He closed the sheriff's eyes with quiet finality. There was no satisfaction in his face, just acceptance. Stood and looked out over the plains. No more pursuers, no more horses. Just silence. They buried the dead at sunrise. No markers, no words, only the sound of shovels cutting into stubborn earth, and the occasional cry of a hawk circling above. Afterward, they sat by the fire, sipping water from a nearby spring. Caleb had led them to. The air was cleaner now, the weight of survival slightly less suffocating. Micah turned to Caleb. "You could have left us?" "I could have," Caleb said. "Why didn't you?" Caleb didn't answer right away. He watched the fire dance, his face unreadable, because there's a line in the sand, and when you see someone dragged over it, you either look away or you pull them back. Lena reached into her pack and pulled out a sketchbook, tattered, smudged, filled with memories. She flipped through it and stopped at a blank page with a piece of charcoal. She began to draw. The first stroke was Micah's profile, then Caleb's, then hers. The three of them standing on the ridge, facing the sun. Micah leaned against her, smiling. "That'll be a hell of a thing to remember." "No," she said softly. "It's something we don't ever forget." As noon approached, they prepared to part. Caleb packed his things methodically, his eyes fixed to the horizon. "You heading out alone again?" Micah asked. Caleb nodded. "There's always another fire to put out somewhere." "You sure you don't want to come with us?" Lena offered. "We could build something." He looked at them both, a flicker of something warm crossing his face. Already did. They didn't hug, they didn't cry, but there was understanding stronger than words. Caleb mounted his horse, gave a final nod, and rode eastward into the rising sun. Lena and Micah turned west toward whatever home they might find or make behind them. The wind blew gently, brushing over 3 sets of footprints, slowly fading into the dust. But some things, even in a world so eager to forget, remain.